episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. For 10% off your first air purifier, visit molecule.com. That's molekulE.com and enter the promo code Andrew10 at checkout.
What the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Paul.
All right.
That's the big news
today.
You know what? I am. I'm gonna indulge today while we're doing this. My wife is making corned beef and cabbage right now as we speak, and I'm having a Guinness. So cheers, Paul. I mean, that's the big story right now, right? It's St. Patrick's Day. That's the
the whole world is out celebrating. All the bars are open. It's great. The rivers are flowing green.
Paul and I did not do a show last week, and I'm going to talk about that. I held on to this for a while as to why we didn't do a show, because I didn't want to cause a mass panic amongst my friends and family. So I was quarantined last week.
What does quarantine mean? You were staying home?
I couldn't go to work, I had to stay home until I got my test
that's
results.
My normal existence. What's
that's a normal day for you. For me, it was a big impact because I actually work now, so I go into Manhattan every day. So what happened was my son was sick. My son tested positive for the flu on Monday, flu type A, right, which is avian flu. He was sick. He was getting better, and then on Monday I went to a place where it's possible that the virus is spread. Okay, I'm not gonna say where I went, but I went to a place that there's a lot of concern over. So when I came back on Tuesday, I felt like utter garbage. I mean, totally, I felt very sick. And my biggest concern was not that I have the coronavirus, but that I'm going to get pneumonia again, because I had it three times last year, and I'm having I'm still to this day, it's not the same. Like, my lungs are not the same.
Kids, dude. You're going to get sick every winter.
All the time.
There's nothing you can do about it.
So, whatever. Being sick is not a problem. I just didn't want to get pneumonia. So, when I went, I'm like, I got the flu. I went to the doctor. My fever hit 104 again, which has been every time I'm getting sick. It's sky high. Yeah. So, I go to First Med, actually City Med here in Bayside. And I tell them my symptoms. They gave me the flu test. I tested negative for the flu immediately. And the guy says, hey, any chance were you in contact with anyone that may have this virus or been in contact with somebody? And I said, actually, yes, I did. Last week, a coworker of mine, his friends came back from Italy, and 12 out of the 14 tested positive for it. Yeah. And they're in quarantine in Tarzana in California. So as soon as I said that, miraculously, there was a test available.
Really?
They had the test right there. They did the test.
You had one of the 700 whatever that was made available in this country.
Well, at the time, because this is last Wednesday, which it wasn't readily available. So I got the test, and they said, go home, don't tell anybody until you get the results. But until then, you are quarantined. Technically, I'm still quarantined till the 26th. I cannot, even though, because it could still be a false positive or a false negative. So they've extended the period of it. So my wife, which is a school teacher, now has to come and take the test. So she gets quarantined also. I just got my test results last night, and I'm clear. I'm fine. I don't have the coronavirus. But, I did all the right things. I didn't go out till I was fine.
You waited because now everything's closed. So even if you wanted to go out.
I can't go out anyway because everything is closed. But I was I'm still coughing. My biggest concern still is pneumonia more than anything else. Because it for whatever reason, since last year, I can't kick it when I get sick like this. So I was out last week. All last week, I was really sick. Today's actually the first day that I could actually talk like this without losing my breath. Yeah. So we're here. We're here to do a show. We're not doing it live because I'm having some internet problems here. The world has really changed over the last couple of weeks since we last did a show, right, Paul?
Oh yeah.
We're in a whole
No, I
different
mean,
society.
it's yeah, and if it makes sense. I mean, if you had been paying attention to what's happening out in the world, things change very rapidly in places like Seattle and obviously in China originally, and then in Italy, where your friends were or whatever.
Yeah. They were
Um,
in the Alps. They were in the Italian Alps skiing.
the Italian Alps. That's interesting. Hmm, that's they still got it. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's yeah. So my kids went away last week. They
Where
were
were
in
they?
Jamaica as part of a church group that was going down to help a really poor deaf school for kids down there. And
Uh-huh.
my son is deaf and he knows sign language, and so he was a great help. My daughter has been spending the past 3-4 months trying to learn sign language so she could be communicate better with these kids. But they were helping paint the playground and fix computers and whatever. But of course, the week they're gone, this thing escalates. They're concerned they're not going to be able to come home. They're going to be quarantined when they get home,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And they hear, they saw all the stories about people hoarding toilet paper and blah blah blah. And then, they got home, I guess Saturday, yeah, Saturday. And what is it, Tuesday? I mean, even since Saturday, that our
Yeah.
state has gone on lockdown. They've closed all the restaurants, the bars, the non-essential stores, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, yeah, but I mean, that's the New York Times and probably other places had published some kind of a chart like a week or two ago there where they were saying, the steps that we're finally taking now is what slows that curve, and the curve of people getting it was really high, and if you do
Yeah.
this kind of social separation thing, it gets really low, and that's how that and warm weather apparently
Yeah.
are how we're going to get past this.
Listen, I have my thoughts on this.
Mhm.
I'm not a doomsday guy. I don't believe that it's the end of the world.
Andrew, you know what? I don't believe you. I actually I think you are a great lover and believer of conspiracy theories, and you are
I
a
am.
doomsday
I
guy.
am. I love conspiracy
And
theories.
I would just tell you that I think this thing it's horrible and it's worse than the normal flu, obviously, from like a
Absolutely. Yeah.
mortality rate, whatever. But it is, barring any look, we solved it and here's the cure. I mean, this might be the new normal. I mean, we might have seasonal coronavirus now, like we have seasonal flu, and we just, I for all the bad and awful that comes out of this, I mean, maybe this will trigger some rethinking about the way we do things and, collectively as a society or
Oh,
whatever. And
listen, absolutely.
we'll see.
I have to being in New York City, right? One of the filthiest places on the planet. I
Yeah. Well,
people.
yes and no, by the way. I mean, as we've talked in the past, New York City also has one of the best water supplies in the
It
world.
does. No,
I mean, there's some incredible, I mean, New York is an incredible place in both directions for sure. But
listen. You
yeah.
travel in Europe all the time,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
You've
Yep.
been in Germany. Have you ever seen a subway system in Europe that is like
Uh,
ours?
no,
No.
and I did come from Boston, and so Boston's subway system is probably worse, but it's also much smaller. And uh, yeah, I mean, we have an aging infrastructure problem in this entire country, but it impacts the biggest cities in the East the most because that's where the aging infrastructure is. So, no, there. If you go to a place, London, maybe. I mean, London might be the one exception to this, but if you go to Berlin or Barcelona or even Paris, which has a very old
Yeah.
subway system, I mean, those are wonderful systems.
We. I think part of the. Listen, you can say all the crap you want about the subway system. I'm not. For me, it's always on time. I'm one of the only few people that doesn't have the issues that
On
everybody
time
else
today,
does.
Andrew. I can tell you that.
Well, today there's no problems, but
Hmm.
I it is one of the filthiest systems. So I
Yes.
do think that the municipalities are
Hmm.
going to kind of stick with this cleaning
Yeah.
protocol, and
Yeah.
that's going to be a positive because if you all
Yep.
these I take the subway every day, Paul. I mean, I joke about, somebody asked me how my day was. I said it was fine until the homeless man vomited blood on my shoes. That's not a joke.
Yeah. No.
That is something that I've witnessed
No. Yeah.
regularly.
So I don't live in Boston anymore, but in the last few years we were there, and then when I visit, one of the things I complain about is the Orange Line in Boston. The cars that they use there were in service in the 1970s when I was a child, and I don't mean that like as some kind of an exaggeration. I mean literally the exact cars,
Yeah.
and they're rusted out. The corners of them are rusting into holes. They're so loud that people who ride on that thing daily experience hearing damage. And, you get on a subway in like Barcelona and it's like this, "Sss," and the
Yeah.
train takes off and it's silent and it's like it's on time to the minute. And then you go to Boston and it's like this cacophony of terribleness. Um, this is something we need to fix. And so hopefully now, confronted by an amazing problem, we'll reset our priorities.
Yeah, I think people are going to change the way that they are. I think
Yeah.
just etiquette, covering your face. Don't go out when you're sick. Don't sneeze. Don't eat
Yeah,
food on the train. And I think
I
that's
I just wrote a story about the good that in people during crises, but I also experience great, stupidity out in the world as well. And, until yesterday, because they closed it at midnight, I was going to the gym and there were still people going from machine to machine, not cleaning the machine after they sweated all over it.
yeah.
And it's like, guys, seriously, I like, how out to lunch do you have to be to not understand how important that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What happened?
I
You okay?
have
It's all right.
yeah, we have uh, I live on a circle of hypochondriacs and they are constantly texting and it's just I see things where my brain just shuts down. I've
That's like
complained about this so much. You'll appreciate the irony of this sentence coming out of my wife's mouth because my wife is someone who is not technical, doesn't care about technology and whatever, but she said to me, she says, "You have an Android phone, you can mute it." That's what she said to me. And I'm like, "Yeah, but" I don't know, I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted.
Yeah. I do want to. We do have a lot of technology stuff to talk about news wise, but I do want to. This is, with what's happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
This is something that Paul and I have always discussed, and it's telecommuting and
Right.
how, when you really think about your day to day, how essential is it to get in a
Mhm.
car and drive to work for most people,
Right.
or
Right.
get on, take a 45-minute commute to work. I've been for me, I look at my own personal habits with with
Yeah.
with how I work and what I do. I've always worked for myself. Paul, same boat as me.
No,
You
well, you know
work
what? Actually, Andrew, I'll say this. I mean, you do commute,
now. I
now.
do. Yeah, now.
Yeah, so you've experienced like I think you might have a better and more recent insight into the troubles that people are going to have along the lines of you don't understand maybe day to day how important these regular interactions are. So, you complained about the guy vomiting blood, on your shoe, and obviously nobody wants that. But I mean, there's a little bit of social interaction that occurs just in the process of commuting, of going to a place of work and greeting people and kind of going through your day and doing things in person.
Yeah.
I have been working at home since I'm going to say 1994-ish, and so I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was actually kind of a work from home pioneer, not by design, but just kind of worked out that way. But I also do something that's very solitary, meaning that I write, primarily. And for me, the in person social interactions occur like there are personal things, like I have friends and stuff, and we do things. But I mean, as far as like I don't daily commute, so we have trade shows I go to and I get to see all the people who do things like I do and on some schedule and it's kind of neat. And of course, because of this coronavirus, like that's been wiped out. So
Yeah.
it's not worse for me, but I mean, I work from home already. And so when I look at the first 6 months of this year, at least, and probably more, every single trip has been wiped off off the calendar. They're all gone. I didn't, and I'm not going to Barcelona, to Las Vegas, to Chicago,
You're not
to
doing your summer
Orlando,
trip?
to well, no, we never even booked one, so, I
Okay.
mean, we'll see what happens there, but, we're still waiting to find out what happens with my daughter's, college, so and now we're waiting to see what happens with this, so, all this stuff. So, through at least the end of June and probably beyond, not going anywhere basically, right? So, uh, That kind of stinks. I mean,
Yeah.
but for people who are used to going in every day, and I'm sure part of it is like, oh, what a relief! This will be so awesome. I guess it depends on what you do for a living, right? Some people can work from home, and that will be an adjustment. Some people might not be able to work from home. Some people might still be required to go to a place of work because of the nature of their job. Doctors, obviously, or nurses and healthcare professionals, and firemen and policemen, and whatever. Food service people. Restaurants are closed, but a lot of them have
Takeout.
to go or pick up orders they can still do and things like that. And so it's this gigantic adjustment. And then retail, my God, if you're in retail, you're just out. You're just. It's not like you go home and you do stuff. You're kind of screwed. Like it's
Yeah.
depending on what you do, this is going to be a very different experience.
Oh, tremendously different experience. I mean, listen, for me, this my business is always my main job, but
Yeah.
I have kind of fallen into this role of running one of the largest uh, clubs in New York City. Essentially, we have three separate clubs in the city,
Yeah.
and I, due to a bizarre circumstance that I'll one day tell, I've become the VP of the company, and now I'm running the show.
Okay.
But first of all, that whole story is nuts. Paul knows the story of everything, and it's one day it's like a book. I'll have to tell the story one day, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but
I've
regardless, I mean, you can't. There's nothing there anymore, right? So
regardless, I
today,
and we have 1,000 employees that I have
right?
to tell them that I'm so sorry. A lot of you will not be getting paid,
Yeah.
and
Of course. Of course.
it just and other ones we're gonna have to kind of hunker down and
Yeah. Pray that
put
this thing ends pretty quickly.
yeah, because there's no way to sustain paying so many people with no revenue
Right.
coming in,
Right.
no income coming in. So it's a really bad position. But I think for a lot of people to kind of go on the other side, I'm always a fan of telecommuting and working
Hmm.
from home and the ability to have flexibility, not necessarily every day,
Oh
but to
yeah. Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
ability to have flexibility
Yep.
because there are a
If
lot
you
of
can do it,
employers out there.
yeah.
If you can,
It's
there's a lot of employers that are against the concept of
yeah.
working from home.
Well, maybe this
And
will help that too. You know.
I'm gonna tell you something. I, somebody that I know has a business, right? And
Mhm.
they're in marketing, and they believe in having everybody there every single day from 9 to 5. They follow
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
traditional
Yep.
work schedule. And I was having dinner with him recently, and this guy's a brilliant guy. And I said, here's a question. I go, why does your social media girl have to come in every day 9 to 5?
I know it's crazy
Right? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, they're
because
making,
but
let's
he
say,
needs
two.
to see her typing at a computer. That's the only way he knows she works.
That is exactly what he said. I only know she's working if she's in
Ugh.
front of me. And I said, well, here's the
Really?
thing. I go, what? I said, I know because I know this girl because now she's
Yeah.
doing everything from home, right? Like, because we were talking about
Well, I was gonna say you can
telecommuting and
tell she's
everything.
working because social media is occurring,
Yeah.
right?
It-
Nobody I work with has to question if I'm working. They can just look at my site.
did you
You
post
know,
anything today?
do
Yes,
you
he did.
see things
Okay.
occurring? Then Paul's working.
Well,
You know?
he's under the concept of no, you have to work in order to get anything done. You need to work 8 hours a day. So he
Yeah.
pulls. He's the worst person. He's a great guy, but a
So,
terrible
okay,
boss.
he's
Terrible
an idiot.
boss.
So
Yeah,
let
terrible
me
boss.
let's review some of the recent findings here. So first of all, this 8 hour 5 day a week thing is inefficient, and this is now a fact. Like there is an ideal work week for people and their psychology and their health where they're most productive and actually get more done in less time over fewer days, and we will slowly get there, just like we'll slowly get to the kids who are teenagers shouldn't be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to classes first thing. They should be getting up at 10 and going to classes at 11 because that's where they're at physiologically, right? I mean, we have to get over we have these traditions and norms that came out of some circumstance
Yeah.
that no longer exists and are actually fairly recent, that we assume are just the way things should go. So that whole 8 hour, 40 hour thing is ridiculous.
It's a old
It's
school
ridiculous.
mentality that somebody came up with.
Yep.
The whole
It's
point of the eight
arbitrary.
hour. It is arbitrary, and the whole point
It's
was
arbitrary.
that is the concept wasn't that we work 8 hours every day. The concept was that is a maximum output a person can have for productivity in their
Honestly, it's
day.
above the maximum. It's just that we don't understand that yet. So, Here's look, like I said, I've been working at home since 1994 ish. I'd have to really think about this to figure out the exact date or whatever, but I've been working at home for a long time. And the one thing I sort of have come to I came to understand in the first few years was there is some guilt in the beginning. If, for example, I'm home now, like, so I could
Yeah.
get up. I'm not going to do it during a podcast, but I could get up. I could grab the laundry basket, carry it downstairs, and I could put the laundry in the machine, and I
Yeah.
could do laundry.
Yeah.
And that's not work, right? And it's like, well, am I wasting my employer's dollars or something here? Am I But honestly, actually, I shouldn't say
W-
honestly because there is an honesty to the work from home thing that is lacking when you go into an office where if you have to come to terms with it. But it's like you need those breaks mentally,
Yeah.
right? And so it's actually kind of convenient because I am home that some of those breaks can include things like I walk down to the street and get the mail, or I, do the laundry, like I said, or I clean out a little portion of the garage, for 15 minutes one day or whatever it is. One of the problems, the way to flip this on its head is to think about the nonsense that people do when they sit in an office for 8 hours a day and pretend to work because that's what's expected of them,
Yeah.
right? There is a dishonesty to that. No one is sitting in front of a computer or whatever they're doing at work, working, like literally working on behalf of their employer for 8 hours every single day. No one is doing that.
It's an impossibility.
It's
It,
not,
it,
yeah, it's a lie. And you have to kind of get over it. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm a writer, so I don't have a hard job from a physical standpoint. But I mean, I can sit here in front of the computer. I can get lost in what I'm doing. My wife will come. My wife works from home too, so she'll
By the
come
way,
down to
we're
the
talking
room.
about office jobs at this moment. I know people are going to be like, "Well, how about the cops and the firefighter?" Yeah,
Yes, no,
we're
no. Of
talking
course,
about
look,
office.
it is very specifically people can work from home. And even within the confines of those people, my friend John is an accountant. He can work from home, and he often does.
Yeah.
Now he does a lot more. What he does for work is not the same as what I do, but he can still work from home, and it still involves a computer and whatever. Um, but I'm lucky. I mean, I can move around the house if I want. I can work from the other room. I can go up and lay on the bed and work on a laptop. But I can do these different things, and I think that's the first step is kind of getting over the guilt of I'm taking 15 minutes, or I have to go on an errand. I have to go to CVS to pick up a prescription, or I have to go to or whatever. I go to the gym, not anymore, but I usually I had been going to the gym, and that takes about an hour every day. With the trial, I spend about 45 minutes actually at the gym, but I mean, it's about an hour really, door to door. So that's an hour I'm not working. Do I feel bad about that? No, because for me, and I think for most people, that time off is like how you recharge. It's you need to get your mind off of the thing you're focusing on for work because sometimes that's when the epiphanies happen. Like I could be working out at the gym or walking up a hill nearby, whatever it is, and it's like, oh, that's the answer to this thing that's been bugging me that I wasn't able, that if I sat here and stared at the screen all day, I would never have gotten, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's a maturity and honesty can be maturity and honesty to working from home. Whereas
Yeah.
there is often, not always, but often a dishonesty when you're forced to sit in an office with someone literally hanging over you. What are you doing? What are you working on? What are you doing? And all that nonsense, how you get, interrupted all day long as well with things that are supposedly crucial to the company. Um, so that's one thing. I think that's one of the hurdles we
Yeah.
all have to get over.
Um, I, I it's a giant hurdle that we have to get over, and I think we're kind of getting there with services. I'm curious. Do you think there's going to be a shift going forward?
A shift in like
In the
service
sense that people,
usage.
yeah, from something like this, they're going to realize that we're just this is how it is. We have to work from home.
Yeah.
During high flu season, maybe it's fine if we only go in 3 days a week into the office and work the
Right.
rest from home.
Right.
This
There's
whole
an
concept, like
enormous
in
cost.
the whole 5 sick days and 5 personal day concept is so bizarre to me that
Yeah, geez,
who decided that we could only get sick 5 times?
this was like a compromise from 0 days off because you were working in a factory and they were trying to bleed you until you died. I mean, like, The system we have now here in the United States, anyway, is so antiquated and pointless. I mean, I will this change it? I hope so. But um, we'll see. I look the old school model, and your that friend you were referring to probably adheres to this. Is I have a company, and that company has 500 employees. I need to buy a building that can sit 500 employees, and they all have to have a desk and a computer and a window and or whatever. And then this is like the if you it's kind of like the conversation you have around cloud computing. Back in the day, it was like, well, we have to have all these computers and or all these, data center servers and so forth. Versus, well, actually, we only need that power at the holidays, maybe, so we could rent it from a cloud computing service, and that's actually that actually makes more sense. A business with 500 employees today could say, well, we have an
Yeah.
office and we have enough room for 30 people, right? Most of them are working externally somehow, we remotely from home, or they travel, or whatever they do. But when people want to come in, or sometimes, or if we have meetings with certain groups, we have space for them, or whatever. And it's just a different way of doing things. It actually saves the company money,
Yeah.
because you're not paying 24/7, 365 for the heat and the air conditioning and the electricity and the rent and the insurance and whatever it is for this infrastructure that you've created because you grew up in a world where 8 hours and 40 hours was the norm, and that's how you do business. It's a different kind of economy
Yeah.
today. And again, I'm not. I feel like we're making lemonade here a little bit, but I mean, maybe this will be one of the impacts. Remember when they canceled like Mobile World Congress, and then they started canceling trade shows? And I had said back at the time of Mobile World Congress, one of the outcomes of this is going to be some of these companies are going to discover they don't need to go to Mobile World
They don't need to
Congress.
do
Like
it.
this is
I think it's
this
the
is
same
like a
thing.
big expense.
Yeah. Tremendous
It doesn't mean
expense.
it goes away, right? It doesn't have to go away, but it might mean that these things are
Well,
smaller in the
I'm going to tell
future.
you something. You know why they go? It's a pissing contest. They go because
Yeah.
somebody else is going, a competitor's going, and they don't want to
Yep.
be outshined by the competitor. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has zero to do with it being a marketing tool for them. These conventions, yeah, you go, you meet people, but for the most part, they could do that outside of this.
Yeah. Now, every business is different. Every industry is different. Whatever. But I think about. Let's just talk about Microsoft. Like Microsoft being the primary company that I cover and have covered over my entire life. I mean, they've gone from different systems with multiple huge trade shows to just a handful of big trade shows. Maybe they're going to go down to one soon. I've heard is a
Yeah.
possibility. But they can do littler local or traveling events where they do reviewers workshops for like Surface products, and maybe they go to San Francisco and they go to New York,
Yeah.
or maybe they do more virtual events where you have, and actually they're going to do one in less than 2 weeks.
Listen,
Um,
Apple doesn't participate in any of them, and they're doing pretty good.
that's true.
You know?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, look, it's going to vary by industry. I know people who don't work in the tech industry and have lost out on some major travel like I have, and they're in lighting industries or in whatever they are. It doesn't really matter, but things are going to change. And so, is it important to fly Paul to Barcelona so he can look at a HoloLens? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably
I
not.
mean, that's fun,
And as
but
much as I might like that personally, I mean, maybe these are the types of things we can collectively reevaluate. And I bet some of the decisions we make in the future will be different, even when the coronavirus has ended.
yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, listen, the whole thing is we just learn from this and then we continue on, and we modify the way we do things. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
The
how it's
the
gonna
other
be.
thing, by the way, and I don't know how I don't know how this would impact other people. One thing I've been thinking about is, like I said, all my travel's been canceled for forever. I have no travel canceled. Actually, I have no travel planned. Which is, by the way, not a first, but my God, it's a little weird. My wife and I had intended to go to Paris at the end of this month, right? So obviously that trip's over, and we have time, and we may
Yeah.
not be able to go to a restaurant for a while. Like we don't know how that's going to be, or a bar, and so like we're kind of, like everyone else. I mean, I don't mean we're special or different, but I mean, you kind of reevaluate things, and it's like, well, let's make lemonade here. Like, what can we do to make this existence, to make this time kind of mean something, and also not be as monotonous and terrible, right? And again, this is going to vary from person to person or family to family, and depending on what you do for a living and your ability to spend the time doing this. But one thing I plan to do, and I've already started, my office is a mess in front of me. You can't see it, but is going through all of the crap I have in the cellar,
Yeah.
which is something I've done, from time to time at other houses, but haven't done yet here. And I'm gonna winnow this stuff out. When my kids went to Jamaica the other last week, they took and they went with the group, so everyone I probably took one or something, but I think they brought 9 or 10 really old laptops down and gave them to the kids at the school, give them to school
Nice.
so they could use them for classes and so forth. And it takes a little time, not a big deal. It's just they were literally just sitting in boxes. I was never going to use them. Um, but it was kind of a nice thing to do. And I talked to the guys who ran the thing, and they were like, "Look, if you ever have any more," and I said, "Oh, I I have more."
I have so
So
much more.
you have no idea. You're going to be tired of me by the time this is over. But I'm not going to get it all done in one whack, right? But
Yeah.
but we're looking at months here. Like there is nothing happening with work travel through at least June, no doubt about it, and probably beyond that. Um, Probably not going to be traveling at all during that time frame. If we do, it will be kind of semi-local. Whenever things kick on again. I'm going to try to spend some of that time, clearing that stuff out. I have a lot of crap, right?
I
And
actually started doing the same thing with hard
yeah,
drives.
I would imagine a lot of people, right,
Yeah.
have something similar they can do to make good use of this time. I even said to my wife, I said, "Look, as as stupid as this sounds, I mean, this might be an opportunity to save some money because we're not going to be going out and spending it on discretionary baloney like
Yeah.
food and drinks and stuff, and just have a nice little reset there. It's good for the wallet, it's good for your health. you
Yeah.
know,
Except I've
um,
ordered I've ordered so much stuff on Amazon over the last 2 days. So that's
Oh, listen, you're talking to someone who stood in line at a liquor store yesterday because they were gonna be closing at midnight, so, as my wife remarked of that little bit of stupidity, if you were trying to get coronavirus, this is how it happens. It's like
yeah.
we're in line with, like, 100 people going out the door, and it's like, if they had just left the liquor stores open, there would have been 3 people in that store that day. There would have been no one there. It would have been the safest place on earth. But by
Yeah.
by announcing that it's gonna close, it was
Wait,
suddenly probably
they
the most
closed your liquor
dangerous.
store? Wait, your liquor
Yeah,
stores are
liquor
closed?
stores are closed, yeah,
You
yep,
get out of here.
yeah.
That's
Well, you gotta
insane.
understand, we have sorry, in Pennsylvania, we have state-run liquor stores.
Okay.
So, and it's kinda like I know New Hampshire has the same kinda system. All the states who care about their people have good systems like this.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah, it's really it's actually not terrible, but if you go to a supermarket, I think supermarkets sell wine and beer or
Okay.
can. So, if you wanted that stuff, it's not like, it's not gone
Oh my
forever,
god.
but,
You scared me. I was gonna mail you wine. I was gonna start mailing you stuff.
uh Andrew, I think you know me well enough to know we're well stocked for the apocalypse, in that department,
I
so
gotta tell you something. So I'm being messaged right now, and you want to. I live in the most degenerate town. I'm being messaged right now
yeah,
from a bartender friend of mine, and
mhm,
I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say this may be a joke or this may not be a joke. I'm gonna let you
okay,
decide if this is fact or fiction.
okay,
You can decide whatever you want. He's messaging. He's like, I just rented a place in one of the next town over that
yep.
he's making into a speakeasy until the bars could open.
That's
And I
not
said,
smart.
"How are you going to pull this off?" He's like, "It's great. Nobody knows we're open. I'm paying people off.
Yeah, but
I'll see you Friday." That's what he
the
just
way
wrote to me. I go,
that's not smart.
I
The
want to
smart
do
thing
the
is
social
not
distancing.
the smart thing is not to congregate.
I got enough booze. I could
Yeah.
talk to enough people. It's fine.
We're
I
gonna be
don't need
watching a
to
lot of
go.
movies, Andrew, that's what I'm thinking. And by the way, have you seen it? Um, I just I just this is actually I'm sorry, 2 things we've talked about that I've sort of wistfully hoped for have occurred.
Okay.
Not one of them because of the coronavirus. The first one is oh, let me go off on a tangent. I'm sorry. This is you've heard me complain about the drivers in the state of Pennsylvania, right? I've
Yeah.
complained about these people. They're terrible. I went let me think about the math on this one. I went 17 or 27. 20 I went 27 years without getting in an accident. And then in the past 6 months, I've been rear-ended in this state twice. Actually,
You're
I'm not
kidding
one,
me.
I've been in 2 accidents, both of them not my fault. Because these drivers are terrible. So this last one, I want you to conceptualize this one in your brain. It's incredible. I'm going on a street and I have to take a left. Well, for you, it's a left over here, but and I'm turning. Well, I'm turning left, right? You can see the L shape of that. I am across the double yellow line in 3/4 of the way through this turn, and someone coming from the direction I was going hits me on the driver's rear side of the car.
Oh,
Think
jeez.
about that. Think
How does
about
that
how
even?
out of the way you'd have to go to hit me
Yeah.
there. Guy was 81 years old. Probably shouldn't be driving. Whatever. Anyway, we had to get a rental car. I got a Hyundai. Hyundai doesn't matter. It's a SUV thing, right?
The Hyundai doesn't
It had,
matter. That's a good one.
yeah, Hyundai doesn't matter. Who cares? It's
Yeah.
a Hyundai, but it has a nice like a entertainment system thing in it, right, with a screen. And I'm driving around today, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, and it does all these things my car doesn't do with Bluetooth. You can pause and play. It's awesome. And I'm like, I remember I said Android Auto, whatever. But one thing I would love to have is the ability to project my phone screen to the screen in the car. This
Okay.
car has that feature. It's called phone projection. Like, it's in the car. I
So wait a minute.
invented this in my head,
You
and it exists.
okay? Explain that again. You project your
In other words,
screen.
right. So in other words, a lot of car systems will have the ability to have Android Auto and or
Or
CarPlay.
yeah,
And
where you plug it in.
if you have those things, there's a map app on there, and you can interact with it that way. And it interacts with your phone wirelessly,
Yeah.
whatever. But what then that's fine. I like that. But what I always wanted to do was basically cast my phone screen to the screen, and then just because in other words, you sit there with maps on your phone, and then you just go boop, and it comes up on the screen. This car does that. In addition to having Android Auto, like it actually does that. You can project your phone screen to the screen in the car.
Okay, so
Like,
it's not a UI. It's not the UI. It's the actual phone screen
yes, like that's
on both Android and
well, I
iOS.
don't know. I only have Android. But I'm just saying it works. Like what I imagined in my head is in this car, and I was like, that is amazing. The other
Interesting.
thing that has happened in the past couple of days that again, and you and I talked about this one. Actually, we talked about both these things. Was remember we said we were talking about how awesome it would be if when a movie came out, we could rent it at home,
Yeah.
$27 or something, to watch it at home, and
Yeah.
it could have a short window. And they could charge enough that it would be worth it. I could invite people over and just watch it on the big screen. Dude, you can do that now,
Yeah, I saw
right?
that. Universal's doing it, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, right? And again, I'm like hooray coronavirus. I don't mean it like that, but I mean it's because of the coronavirus and because they don't want people in theaters, in congregating. They've done this thing, which is like I've always thought was kind of a good idea. And who knows? Like if this goes over well enough,
This could be the norm.
I think so, because not because theaters need to go away. Like people will still go to theaters, and that's fine. But I feel like the revenues from movies will be higher if they do both at the same time.
Well, he has a question, right? Do
Yeah.
I hate movie theaters.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
skivats. I can't.
Mhm.
I can't
Okay.
do it. It's sitting in the
There
dark
are, by the
on
way, I
some
will just real
filthy.
quick. There are adult ways around this. There are theaters that are literally adult
Yes,
only.
I know, and
They
you
serve
get
food
you
and
could
drinks.
drink, you could eat dinner. I
Now,
get it. I know.
don't get me wrong. Dude, I have been to one movie in the past year. We saw the Star Wars movie, right? So, it was a really good experience.
The
My
Mummy
wife and
was
I
the last
walked.
movie I went to go see. The movie, the original
The
Mummy.
Hobbit. Is that what you said? The
No, the
Hobbit.
Mummy. The Mummy.
Oh, the Mummy.
The original
Um,
Mummy.
the original. Jeez. Okay, so it's like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So, and by the way, you just said the original Mummy, and you're young, so you don't know the original Mummies
I
from
know. There was
1930.
one way before.
There was
I
one,
guess
yeah, there was a couple probably.
there was a
But
couple Mummy movies.
anyway, the Brendan Fraser Mummy is the one you meant,
Yeah, the worst
right?
one
Okay.
ever.
No, I like that movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, we walked out of the theater and we said, "Oh yeah, we should do this more often. It's actually pretty good." But the truth is, I'd rather just watch movies at home. So anyway, just kind of an interesting aside. Like this is happening, and I might literally, and it's less money than I envisioned, and the window is longer than I envisioned. It's 2 days, and this may cause me to spend $20 or something, and we'll rent a movie, like a
And
new
do it.
movie. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? Before we continue, we do have an ad today.
Oh, jeez.
I do want to talk about our advertiser. I totally forgot to do this because we're having such a great time, but this is a great ad to have today because allergy season is upon us, and I'm dying right now. Not only was I sick, which is a whole separate thing. But my eyes right now are, Paul, when I tell you like 1 to 10, it's like an 8.5, and they're burning just
Right.
because it's allergy season's kicking in, and I'm redoing both my bathrooms at the same time, which is never a good idea. So the amount of dust and pollen and just stuff in the air that's floating around here, sitting on my contact lenses, is absolutely terrible. And Molecule is this amazing company. They've reimagined the future of clean air. And here's a great product. I absolutely love them. They got two different products, which I'm going to talk about: the Molecule and the Air Mini, which is great. But I do want to say you get 10% off your first air purifier when you go to molecule.com and use the offer code Andrew10 at checkout. That's MOLEKULE.com, and use the promo code Andrew10 at checkout. You get 10% off your order. So this is the thing about them. They have created this effective way to clear the air. It's given allergy and asthma sufferers around the country a whole new experience. I'm one of these people, and I've spoken about them for a while, and how I'm able to determine how good Molecule is compared to another air purifier. I have, Paul, you actually have it too, and I talk about this all the time. I have the
Right.
glass thermostat that was made by Johnson Control. This was going to be a big deal a couple of years ago. Not so much now. Nobody's talking about this thing. But a feature of this thermostat is that it's able to calculate the quality of air based on a variety of things. Volatile allergens in the air. Just it's able to. It has. I think it does 3 different types of measurements to tell you how the air quality is. When I don't keep this thing on, I got a 120-year-old house. When I don't keep my air purifier on, right now it's not on. It because I moved it to the basement because I was doing some work down there. It's telling me constantly, open up a window. The air is not good. When I have this thing running, it never tells me that. It tells me my air quality is really good. It doesn't use the HEPA filter. It uses Pico technology that it actually destroys tiny particles in the air that are allergens and even viruses in the air. So, which the HEPA filter at times it will not get it. This thing was developed nearly a century ago, and it just can't catch on that level, particles in the air on that level. This thing is great. I know multiple people that have bought this and they love it. Now they have a smaller one. If you have a small office, you could have it. You could have it in there, or if you have a larger living room, you could have one in there as well. I highly recommend you check it out. It's molecule.com. That's MOLEKULE.com, and you use the offer code Andrew10 at checkout. You get 10% off your purchase at Molecule. I absolutely love these guys. I have the little ones in my kids' rooms, and I have 2 big ones now. One in the basement and one in my attic that I got to put back in the living room right now. So it's phenomenal. Also, it's able to do things that the HEPA filter can't. Like it does smaller things like mold, viruses, bacteria, volatile organic chemicals in the air. So it's able to really do a phenomenal job. I absolutely love these guys. Molecule.com, guys. Go check them out. Appropriate time to talk about them, actually. So we've kind of touched on this telecommuting, and I thought it was topical to kind of talk about the shift in society more than anything else today, on how we're going to kind of adapt to this new world where I think we're more aware of what's happening. Listen, I'm still telling you guys, the flu and the cold are still a tremendous health risk to many people. And I think people are now more conscious about who they should be around if they're not feeling well, more than anything else. Like Paul, because
Right.
he's old.
When my kids were in Jamaica, they were texting us, regularly, whatever. We were just exchanging whatever, and Mark or Kelly, I can't remember, one of my kids said something like, I've never been so glad to be young," and then my wife responded with, "Yeah, me too," and I was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
not exactly, but we're not. I mean, I think the fear here is what, people over 60 or 70 or something. I mean, I think those people are probably The most in danger?
So
Something like that.
Microsoft is holding an event, a digital event on
We're just
March
moving
30th
right along here.
to kind of
Yep.
go right to this.
Mhm.
What is this event for?
They haven't said, but it's probably for Microsoft 365 for consumers slash what has been rumored to be called Teams for Life, which is basically the consumer version of Microsoft Teams.
Consumer version of Microsoft Teams.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I mean,
Um,
honestly, with what's going on in the world and with Microsoft, like others, giving away some software for free, including all of the premium features of Teams, I'm kind of surprised they didn't just announce and release this immediately rather than wait another 2 weeks. But um, maybe the timing is based on something I don't know. But yeah, so we'll see. But that's the current guess.
yeah.
Excuse me.
And I do want to talk about Bill Gates stepping down from the board for Microsoft. This is a big step. How do you think this is going to impact Microsoft? I mean, he's been, he's the guy. He he
Well,
he he started this whole
yeah,
thing, and now him
right.
stepping down.
So
Um,
he's been in the process of stepping away from Microsoft for many years, right? And so, I think Microsoft, for continuity purposes, carted out Gates when Nadella became CEO. Talks about Gates being having the ear of um, the CEO. He was the chairman of Microsoft until he stepped down. But I think his role in current day Microsoft is minimal. Um, and I think this is more of a formality. The one thing about Gates, and I don't want to harp on this because I kind of harped on about this on First Ring Daily the other day, and I know this will rub some people the wrong way because they don't understand this person as well as they should. But Bill Gates was a horrible human being and did terrible things in our industry while he was CEO of Microsoft, and he doesn't have a positive legacy. Beyond the fact that he was one of the pioneers that did bring personal computing to the masses and so forth, but he destroyed so many lives and so many people and so many businesses. It's hard to even calculate the damage that he did and how he held back the industry once Microsoft became dominant by destroying lots of innovative ideas and companies and whatever. So again, I don't want to harp on that, but the one thing I will say about Gates that is kind of incredible and is quite different for him than it is for say someone like Steve Jobs or anyone else who was a kind of a technology pioneer is since stepping down from his full-time role at Microsoft, he has dedicated his life to philanthropy and to solving a lot of the world's toughest health problems. And his post Microsoft career has been incredible, and
a
there's no
very
way
different
to
legacy. Very different
yeah, there's
legacy.
no way to dump on that. So I think the thing that it's interesting because to me and to I think to anyone listening to this podcast, you hear Bill Gates and you think Microsoft and you think Windows and you think DOS and you think Office and whatever, but to the broader world and to the context of history, his most enduring legacy, if he's successful, might be this post Microsoft stuff. And that's nuts. I mean, like Michael Jordan or Larry Bird are not known for what they did after they left the
Yeah.
NBA, or, Albert Einstein didn't retire and, you know, go off in some different direction, whoever you want to name, and whatever. So, I'm I don't think there are many or any parallels to what this guy has done after the thing that he was supposed to be most famous for. So it's incredible. And I think, and I'm sure this wasn't because of coronavirus, but maybe, there was some influence like here, like this work I'm doing is very important. The stuff that was happening over at Microsoft is not important. And it isn't. It just isn't
Yeah.
important. I mean, one of the weirdisms of what's going on today, and I was describing this to my wife, is like, you know, Microsoft will announce Xbox One X specs or Windows 10 milestone or Mixer, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it just all seems so pointless in the face of what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Apple's going to release like new iPhones this year for some reason. Like, when you think about like shifting priorities, sometimes you need this kind of a slap in the face to understand that this stuff that we're so like hyper focused on in the scope of things is not super important. And, you know, whether it's a pair, I just did a very short write up about a pair of Samsung earbuds or a phone that is a small improvement over the phone I got last year, or a computer that is a tiny improvement over the computer I was using before, or blah blah. I
Yeah.
mean, like at some point, all this stuff just it just seems to it's just noise. Not that it isn't in its own way important, of course, but yeah. So Gates, he's not exactly Hitler, but I give him credit for. You have to give him credit. I mean, for what he's done since he left Microsoft is incredible.
But it's also, you got to look back to all those executives from that era. Many of them were very cutthroat, and the
uh,
concept of absorbing
yeah,
and creating wasn't really there as much. Right now, when acquisitions are done not to hinder technology but to better yours. And I think back, you look at the 90s even, total companies were acquired and dumped just to stop
so
innovation.
I please don't put me in the awful position of expanding on what I just said about Bill Gates
I
because I
kind of
could go
want
on and on about.
I kind
Yeah,
of want to.
I just whatever. Look, the books are out there. You can read it for
Yeah.
yourself. I mean, whatever. But
Do you think post Gates, right?
mhm.
Microsoft post Gates, which went into a very different era because you had a sales guy running the company. You didn't have a
Yeah. Well,
technologist.
here,
You
let
didn't
me.
have a tech
Yeah,
guy.
but the one thing I said previous about this and about Gates, about a lot of different people in the tech industry, people who are geniuses are often lacking in other areas. Like if you're really good at something, like Michael Jordan was really good at basketball, was pretty much terrible about everything else in life. Like this is the fact. Like it's sorry if he's your hero, but I mean, like these people are flawed because they have to be. Like we're people. Like you can't be that good at something and not leave something else on the table.
Yeah.
Um, Gates, and I said this of Steven Sinofsky too. It kind of like a military parallel. When you think about Gates was like the right person to to see the opportunity and start a company like Microsoft when he did, to get into the right markets and not to be a dick about it, steal the right ideas and popularize things that might have not taken off as quickly or at all had he not done that.
Mm.
He was the right person to take this tiny company from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and turn it into a global juggernaut that at one time was the biggest tech company in the world for sure, and one of the biggest companies in the world, and dominated this market in a way that no company ever will dominate again. He was the right guy for that. But at some point, as you become humongous, those things that you used to do, the behavior you used to have as an upstart company, isn't cute anymore. It
Yeah.
isn't laudable or respectable. It's illegal, and that's what happens. And that happened. That's not unique to Gates. Apple fell into that same trap under Steve Jobs most recently, and that was Tim Cook. Um, Everyone's rooting for the underdog, and everyone seems to forget that that company is now the biggest company in the world, and they are a monopolistic, illegal nightmare. Like it's terrible, and that
Listen,
happened to
Apple just
Microsoft.
got fined what, 1.2
Yeah,
billion?
for like next to nothing, and that's like the
Yeah.
tip of the biggest iceberg in the world. But well, whatever. Apple's a problem for another day. So at some point, it's like the MacArthur thing. Like MacArthur was the right guy until Korea happened, and he wanted to invade China.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh crap, this guy's insane. you know, like we had to get rid of him. Oh my god, he's like a national hero. It doesn't matter. He's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and Gates hit that point, and so yeah, when Gates left the CEO role and stepped down for Steve Ballmer, who was his friend, um, Microsoft needed someone who was a businessman. It was the right thing for the time. There is a historical weirdness to the fact that under Steve Ballmer, Microsoft stock price never went anywhere, although the company's revenues exploded exponentially. Almost not really, but they exploded, and that company became much bigger and much more successful. And Steve Ballmer actually set the stage for everything that Microsoft is doing today that we apply to. We think Nadella invented. Actually, all came out of Steve Ballmer. Those were all his ideas.
Yeah.
But as far as the transition from Ballmer to what's happening today, I don't know how they arrived at Nadella, but obviously Wall Street loves the guy, and now their stock has exploded, and Microsoft has had the biggest market
Six.
cap in the world at various kinds.
Oh yeah, and listen, they've had a tremendous amount of success under Nadella, and I don't
Yep,
know if it
yep.
has. You look at the turnaround the company did between Windows 8 and now. Just on a
Yeah.
consumer level, right? Forget about enterprise, forget about all that. But I mean, it does affect enterprise actually when you think about it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the one vision mentality is kind of out from Microsoft, and now they're kind of everything. It's
Right.
like an
So
octopus's arms at this point.
yeah, and I whoever took over for Steve Ballmer, even though, like I said, the ideas all came from Ballmer, but the problem was if Ballmer and all of his executive infrastructure below him was still in place, they could not have successfully made this transition. So he needed to go so that Microsoft could make this leap. But this new open Microsoft, this Microsoft where we got to stop pretending that Windows is the center of everything. It's this broader thing. We have to go to where our customers are, blah, 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 whatever. That you need new leadership for that to work, for that to even happen. So that transition was also necessary, and they did it. And I don't know. The Bill Gates thing. I kind of bring it back to what you originally said. I mean, he has been the chairman of Microsoft since he left the CEO role. He has been a technical advisor or whatever advisor to Satya Nadella. He is still technically associated with the company. Um, Nadella will occasionally, I'm sure, in the future, talk about how we, discuss this with Bill, and Bill thought it was a great idea because people who are shareholders of the company, people who are executives at the company and have a history with the company, or even enthusiast types or press people like me, need that reassurance as part of this transition.
Yeah.
Because the thing that comes next, the thing that comes after Nadella is there is no connection to the past. And for that to be okay, there have to be these connective tissues along the way. And Gates, again, for whatever he did as a CEO, once the company became dominant or in the path to become dominant, he has helped in those transitions. He has played a big role, a diminishing role each time, but that's important too. So, Microsoft, it has emerged on the other side of this a much bigger company, but a much better company, and I think that's the important thing.
I think practice. I think for Microsoft's case, they've kind of realized where they have to be to survive in this new era of
Not to
technology.
survive, but to thrive. Like the way to look at it is, people like me, like I grew up on, well, I didn't grow up, but as an adult, from a professional capacity, came up around Windows. Windows was the center of my world, from a kind of a professional perspective. So as Microsoft transitions away from Windows, as Microsoft is no longer the biggest company in the tech industry, it can get a little nervous
Yeah.
and nerve wracking or whatever. The thing to remember is that Microsoft, as a relatively small portion of the personal technology market, comparatively speaking, like in other words, when Microsoft used to be 90% of it and now they're only 30% of it, the thing to remember is the pie is much bigger. So Microsoft today at 30% is a bigger company and a richer company and a more profitable company than Microsoft was when they were 90% or whatever the numbers are, and that's the perspective that we need. Microsoft knew that. How do you grow when you're number one? I mean, how do you grow?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's growth to be had, whatever, but I mean, the opportunity for Microsoft is now so much bigger, but opportunity speaks to like some future hope. The reality of Microsoft today as a relatively minor part of the industry, they're not minor, but I mean, not no longer the dominant force, is a much bigger Microsoft than it was when they were dominant. And that's kind of all you need to know. It worked. They did it.
Yeah. It did.
Yeah.
Paul, let's wrap it up. Do you got about 15 minutes to do a what to talk?
Sure.
All right, let's do that. Guys, go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. Obviously, if you listen to this on YouTube, go subscribe to the podcast. We're everywhere podcasts are available. If you're listening to the podcast, go to YouTube and subscribe to us on YouTube. For all things Paul, go to thurrott.com. The next couple of weeks is going to be a very interesting time in all of our lives. So,
Yep.
let's keep the conversation moving.
So the cabin fever's going in about 2 weeks. We're talking tough
Yeah.
today, but
Yeah.
we're going to be
I
bouncing off the
already,
walls.
I'm already getting message from people to go drink in the park with them.
Well, go drink in the park, but don't do it with them.
Yeah.
Just, wave from a
I'm like,
distance.
what are we, bad high school kids from the city?
Yeah, well, yeah, basically.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for this week. See you later. Take care.